Welcome along, Ric Raftis. You're involved in this BlackDogRide. What is the BlackDogRide?
Well, Dennis, the BlackDogRide was originally started out by a bloke in Western Australia, Steve Andrews. He'd been touched by depression and suicide, and ended up riding around Australia by himself to promote awareness and to raise funds for the Black Dog Institute in Sydney. That was in 2009. In 2010 there was a group of riders from Perth and Sydney that met at Port Augusta and then went up the Stewart to Alice Springs. Then last year there were groups of riders from all points except for Hobart, I think, that rode and met at Port Augusta. The Brisbane mob and the Darwin mob came down from the top and all met at Alice Springs. And this year we've got riders from every capital city in Australia, including Hobart, who will be riding to Alice Springs to promote awareness for mental health issues, depression, suicide, that sort of thing.
What a great idea.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
How many people or how many bikes are we talking about, Rick, based on former rides?
I think we've had to cap the ride this year at around about 300 because that's the maximum number of people that Heavy Tree Gap, where we're all staying when we end up in Alice Springs, can handle. So there's been a bit of a fight for places, although there is still a few available. Yep.
How long has it been going on for? Is this the first big ride, United?
No, 2000 and probably last year was the first one that was from a large number. The year before was only Sydney and Perth. So it's just grown every year, and it's growing in awareness every year, and more people wanting to come on the ride too.
We probably should clarify one thing up front too, Rick. There's been a lot of publicity around bikies, with the outlaw patch clubs and so on, as they call them, lately. It's not about that, is it? What sort of people are throwing their weight behind this one?
They're just ordinary everyday motorcyclists. I mean, the 1%ers and the patch clubs probably represent 1% of the entire motorcycle community. There's no colours allowed on the ride, for a start. So even if somebody was a member of a 1% club, we wouldn't even know, and we don't want to know.
Right.
You know, that's not the thing. It's about ordinary people. A lot of Ulyssians probably riding.
Ulyssians, just for those people,
I don't know what that is, though.
A lot of motorcyclists over. Well, I'm not a member, so I'm not sure. I think it's 40 or 45, and their motto is to grow old disgracefully. It's a pretty good one, even if you don't have a motorcycle.
That's great.
So what sort of blokes have? It's not blokes only, I take it, is it?
No, there's women riding as well.
Yeah.
And there's also a number of women coming along as pillions, but it's great to have the ladies along also, because we're all doing it for the same reason.
Well, that brings us back to the depression issue, and there wouldn't be too many families, I wouldn't have thought, that haven't been touched in one way or another, indirectly or directly. What is, from your personal point of view, Rick, how big a factor is that, or is it just an excuse for a good ride?
It's a huge factor, Dennis. 1 in 5. The stats say that 1 in 5 people will suffer from depression throughout their lifetime. Now, if the stats are right, and let's accept that they are for the moment, that means that every single person in our community knows somebody or 2 people, at least, throughout their family, their extended family or their friends, who has had depression in one form or another at some stage. So it's a huge issue that's out there, and it's not only depression as well. That can lead to suicide if it's not treated properly. There's a lot of people who have been diagnosed as depression who end up after a few years actually being diagnosed with bipolar disorder because the diagnosis was wrong in the first instance. So getting those issues out there in the community and getting the community to talk about them is an imperative. But even more so than that is getting blokes to talk
I was going to say it's often the men that don't do the talking, isn't it? The women will chat and talk, and that's very therapeutic. But
fantastic,
for a man to actually,
talk about something besides football and cars, it's a big issue.
Or motorbikes. But I think you were talking about this earlier too, Rick. I know in my experience, and like you said, everyone's been touched one way or another. In my own experience, it's very much a case of the bloke so hell-bent on appearing to be bulletproof and tough and strong for his family and for in front of his mates, that there's almost that sense of, I don't want anyone to know that I'm suffering, in that a level of depression or whatever. Is that how you've seen it?
That's one aspect of it, Dennis. I think one of the other things that I have seen amongst a number of people is the number of people who've ended up losing their families or their jobs as a result of mental health issues, which in turn can lead to an enormous loss of self-esteem. And all of a sudden, you've got people out there feeling worthless.
Yeah.
And depression is no different. Mental health issues are no different to having diabetes. You just can't necessarily see it. But the people feel comfortable talking about diabetes, but they don't feel comfortable talking about depression and mental illness. That's
right. They don't realise that it is actually a chemical imbalance in the brain. Often, lack of serotonin, that sort of thing. There's, there are clinical reasons for depression. Often it can be stimulated by, or I suppose set up by maybe an event. But people that suffer from depression, it is actually a medical condition as such, and the stigma should be, taken away from that. As don't you think?
Absolutely.
People need to remove that as being, you're just being, silly or. Get on with it. A lot of people, that's the term you hear, just get on with it.
Oh, well, look, I have my socks pulled up all the time, but it doesn't seem to matter much. The thing is, you're absolutely right, Sarah. I mean, it is a physical illness, and and the evidence of that is the fact that it's treated by drugs. You can't treat the mind with drugs. You can only treat the body. So, all of those things are treated, or can be treated with medication.
Yes.
And it's just a matter of getting the right help and talking to people and bringing it out in the open.
It's interesting, like your BlackDogRide is why we're having this discussion today, but here we are talking about depression and doing exactly what you suggested we need to do, get it out there. Are there formal ways of doing that within the ride, the context of the ride? Are there any formal discussions and that sort of thing?
We're doing a presentation here in Bendigo, which the public could be invited to. It'll depend on how many riders we have, and the Lions are feeding us here in Bendigo, which is fantastic. They're supporting the ride right around Australia, the Lions clubs, so they've got a very heavy involvement. We're going to be at the bowling club in Barnard Street, I'm pretty sure it is, and I think that can carry 200 people. It'll depend on how many riders, Lions, and what are vacancies that we have there. But the presentation that I'll be actually doing will be a slideshow that's put out by the Black Dog Institute, which talks about exactly the sorts of things that we're talking about here now. In terms of the other aspects of talking about it, the riders develop a sense of camaraderie on the ride, and you'll find that different riders will open up to other riders about what their problems have been and what they've experienced. And there's a lot of people who might be coming on the ride for the first time that might not have an understanding of what they're going to be confronted with, how they're going to get on with the other people on the ride. And it's just going to be a great thing for everybody on the ride to mix in with one another.
So people, sorry, Sarah.
If it was a fundraising, is it actually a fundraising event, or is it purely an awareness?
It's both. It's both, Sarah. All funds that we raise will be going to the Black Dog Institute to support their community awareness programs. They do a lot of work out in the community. They've got an excellent website which gives a lot of information to people as well. So it's sort of a bit of both, but very, very important to get the awareness out there.
So for people, well, I guess two things, Rick. One, wanting to get involved in the ride, and two, looking to learn more about the Black Dog website connectivity. What are the options there?
Well, there's a couple of websites that they can look at, Dennis. There's my own, where I've actually written a number of articles about the ride. That's ricraftis.com. And then there's also the BlackDogRide.com.au, which is all about the ride. That's Steve Andrews' website. And of course there's also the Institute's website, which is blackdoginstitute.org.au. So there's 3 websites where people can go and find out more about the ride, and also how to donate money if they wish to support the ride.
Apart from the ride itself and the presentation you talked about, are there opportunities for people to have a look at, say, you guys departing and that sort of thing? Are there a show, a display of bikes or anything like that?
Probably, seeing that we're in Bendigo, that's probably the more relevant one. We're making arrangements to close Sydney Myer Place on Sunday morning on the 19th of August, and all of the bikes on the ride will be gathering there before we head off to Charlton and Swan Hill. The Tasmanians will be getting off the boat on Sunday morning, and they're going to ride straight up the Calder, and they'll be meeting us there at Sydney Myer Place, so it will be easy to find.
Yeah, good stuff.
And also, you know, we'd love the public to come down and say hello to the riders and have a look at the bikes, and also we pick up some information about mental health issues. Have a yarn to anybody that's there. We'll all be keen to talk to people and of course show our bikes off.
Indeed.
We might have to look at getting you back then, Rick, after the ride. It's going to be a hell of an adventure on every front.
Sure.
And the depression thing's not something that just arrives for that weekend or that week. It's there for the 365 days a year, so we'd love to perhaps engage with you further after the ride and see how it all went.
Always happy to have you on with you, Dennis and Sarah.
That'd be lovely. Thank you.
Terrific.
Thank you.